Imagine pouring your heart into a home for 40 years, transforming every wall into a masterpiece, only to be kicked out by greedy kids who wanted your life's work for themselves. Now imagine watching that same house slowly die at your hands. If you've ever been underestimated or robbed of something you loved, this story will hit hard, because this is one of the most bittersweet, karmic revenge stories you'll hear today. Let me tell you about a woman who lived on my street, a woman whose house didn't just hold memories, it held magic. Her name was Maggie, and if you walked by her home, you'd barely give it a second glance. From the outside, it looked like a quaint little cottage with some bushes and vines and a soft pink door. Nothing flashy, nothing loud. But step inside, and you'd feel like you'd wandered into a dream. Every wall was hand-painted. Disney princesses, mythical forests, fairy tale creatures, meticulously brushed over decades. Maggie wasn't just an artist. She was a retired art teacher turned small business owner. She ran one of those paint and sip studios before they were trendy, and she crushed it. But more than that, she lived her art. When you entered her home, it was like being wrapped in childhood warmth. Each room was a storybook. One room had a mural of Belle reading in a library. Another, a full-blown underwater Little Mermaid fantasy. She painted hope, beauty, and escape into every corner. I'll admit, I wasn't always the best neighbor. Years ago, she complained about the loud truck I drove. I was a bit of an ass about it at first, but she never raised her voice, never got petty. She just explained that the noise scared her rescue dog. We talked. I changed my route. From then on, we were not just neighbors, but friends. She told me that she'd been living in that house since the mid-'80s, with a verbal promise from the original landlord that someday it would be hers. No lease, no paperwork, just trust. He said he'd get the paperwork sorted, but he passed away before he could. That's when things started to unravel. His kids took over the property, real estate shark types. You know the kind. Suits too tight, smiles too wide. One son in particular, Brad, decided to tour the house with his own daughter. Now, instead of respecting Maggie's legacy, he saw something else. An Instagrammable dream home for his spoiled daughter. She loved it, wanted it. And just like that, Maggie's decades of love and labor became an inconvenience to them. No lease, no mercy. They used her own artwork, her murals, as an excuse. Claimed it was unauthorized modification. Said it would lower the value. They kicked her out of the house she'd turned into art. She was devastated. And I mean, completely gutted. I remember the night she told me. Her voice trembled, her hands were shaking. That house wasn't just a home, it was her soul on the walls. But Maggie wasn't weak. In the 11th hour, she found a small property out of state, complete with a full art studio on the first floor. It wasn't what she'd built, but it was a fresh canvas. And somehow, she smiled. Even then, she had grace. She planned to just leave the house as is, murals intact. But my buddy, Jared, a pro painter, offered a strange idea. He said, "Let me restore the house to Rebecca standards. We call bland, flipper-style houses Rebecca condition. You know, cold grays, sterile whites, zero personality. Cookie-cutter hell." Maggie agreed, and that's when the real revenge began. Jared needed a test project for his new commercial-grade paint sprayer. I think deep down, he also wanted to give Maggie a little justice. She moved all her furniture into storage. Jared let her stay in his guest house, for free, on one condition. She paint a mural on his living room wall. She smiled and said, "Make me a margarita, and I'll give you Rapunzel's tower." In just 1 week, she packed her whole life away. And then, week 2 was war. Jared brought in industrial sanders, buffed every wall until the vibrant murals were just ghosts, blotches of color, swirling memories erased. Then came the sprayer. With chilling efficiency, he sprayed every wall in white semi-gloss, 4 passes per wall. The thing was a beast. Any surface that wasn't masked off got hit. Wood paneling? Gone. Cabinets? Blasted gray. Outlets, trims, door frames, all covered in this soul-crushing modern beige. The house went from enchanted kingdom to funeral home in 72 hours, and we weren't done yet. The last touch was the front. Maggie originally wanted to leave the cottage facade. It was hand-built, full of charm. But the landscaper, another friend of Jared's, had a better idea. He offered to tear it all down in exchange for her giving him the decorative bushes. Deal. By the end of the week, the front of the house looked like the front of a storage unit. No vines, no flowers, just gravel, sand, and a single boulder. All that remained of the dream home was a sad, generic husk. A few days later, I was working on a neighbor's plumbing when I noticed Maggie's old house again. Still empty. I asked around. One neighbor told me that earlier in the week, a few U-Hauls had pulled up, but nobody unloaded a thing. Apparently, the daughter walked in and walked right back out. No more bell in the library, no Ariel, no magic, just white walls and dead energy. All her childhood joy replaced with the Rebecca collection. That house didn't feel like a home anymore. It felt like a punishment. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't just paint. This was a funeral for stolen dreams. Maggie's revenge didn't come with yelling or lawsuits. It came quietly, with a paint sprayer, with patience, with artistic euthanasia. She didn't burn the house down. She just made it hollow. She took everything that made it special, every stroke, every shimmer, and wiped it from existence. And when the daughter walked into that cold, soulless shell, expecting Disney, and got depression, chef's kiss. Even better? The house has been sitting empty for months now. Word is they're trying to flip it, but nobody's biting. Why would they? It's just another gray box in a sea of gray boxes. But Maggie? She's painting again. Bigger than ever. Sometimes revenge doesn't need to be loud. Sometimes it just takes a brush, a plan, and the cold satisfaction of watching someone regret everything they stole from you. If this story gave you chills or made you smile, smash that like button and drop a comment. What's the most satisfying revenge you've ever seen? And hey, subscribe for more stories that remind you, karma never misses.